Hello, good morning or good afternoon, depending on when you're joining us. Today we've got this session in which we will be sharing some insights on the nearshoring in Mexico. If you're right now connecting, welcome everyone. Just text us on the chat where are you coming or where are you connecting from. I'm right now in Madrid, Spain, but I'm sure that the rest of the speakers are in the other side of the world, you could say like that. If we got like presenter stuff on the chat, tell us where are you connecting from, like who you are and everything. And if you have any questions during the chat, during the webinar, just text them during the chat box that you have on the like the Q&A box that you have on the bottom part of Zoom. You can send your questions, and the last 15-20 minutes the speakers will be happy to answer them. And that's all. This session will be related for the event on Redmond, Mexico. So I'm happy to welcome you here, and I will pass the lead to Lauren.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Lucia. Thank you so much for joining us. I actually can't see attendees, but I hope that folks are trickling in or planning to just view the webinar after the fact. Just to introduce myself, hello, I'm Lauren Coughlin. I'm a commercial officer in the U.S. Embassy here in Mexico City. I have the pleasure of moderating today, and I will be moderating three excellent speakers. We have Renata Herrera, who is a leader in regulation at AES, a U.S. company that works here in Mexico. We've had the pleasure of meeting multiple times, Renata. I think happy to hear your presentation. In our legal department, I'm sure it'll be in the AES legal department, I'm sure will be a very interesting presentation. Next up, we will have Carla Ortiz, who's CEO of the RER Energy Group, Mexico, another expert kind of consultant, I suppose, in the energy space. And then wrapping up, we'll have kind of a public policy view from Eduardo Sánchez, who's Director General of the State Energy Association for Nuevo León. Thank you so much for everyone joining us. I'll speak for a moment just to introduce my office. I'm part of the U.S. Commercial Service here in Mexico City. The responsibility of the U.S. Commercial Service is that we're the export promotion and investment promotion arm of the U.S. government. We reside within the U.S. Department of Commerce. So that means here in Mexico, we help U.S. businesses sell to Mexico, and we attract foreign direct investment from Mexican businesses to open facilities in the United States. So we're incredibly excited to be partnering with RenMad for their show that's coming up in October. This falls right in line with what we like to do. We provide a number of services in our office to help companies identify new partners, identify distributors, or just learn about a market, identify their best markets for their products. And so part of that work is that we attend trade shows, both in Mexico and the United States. So RenMad is thinking about working with us. We might have a USA pavilion. So this is great news for any US companies that are joining us today. If you're planning to attend RenMad, you might be able to join under our potential flagged branded USA pavilion. And then if we're at the show, we're happy to make introductions, walk around with you, and just provide some additional support if you're planning to attend. Also within our office, we have a number of resources specifically related to the topic of nearshoring, the topic of this webinar. In the nearshoring space, Mexican companies, if they're interested in purchasing products from the United States, they can work with us to identify products and services in the U.S. and then, of course, bring those products to Mexico. We have experts specifically in customs. We have a suite of we have a directory of services here in Mexico that help with, things like translation, freight forwarders, customs brokers, and then we'll help the U.S. company actually navigate kind of the Mexican system to bring their product over the border. Another hat that I wear is that I'm the standards attaché, so that's something that I like to do, especially if a Mexican buyer needs a product that's certified to a specific NOM, needs to comply with some process, we can help the U.S. company actually bring their stuff in. So we're Our goal is to reduce the barriers for you to purchase from the United States and benefit, of course, from the benefits of the USMCA as much as possible. So an invitation to US businesses, please reach out to us if you're looking for anything in particular. If you're planning to be at the show and you'd like to meet with us, we would love to see you. You can reach out to me. I believe my email address will be shared, but it's my name, lauren.coughlin@trade.gov. Or you can just Google us. We have a great website, a whole team of officers such as myself, and also local staff who are specialists in different industry sectors. And we have specialists specifically in the electricity and renewables sector. Her name is Claudia Salgado. I'm sure that folks in Mexico will be familiar with that name. She's more of an institution than I am for sure, and she's the expert. So we'll work with you. We'll connect you, either help the Mexican side bring the products in, or help U.S. companies identify partners. In the nearshoring space, there's a lot of work to be done. Of course, if we're going to be building new facilities in Mexico, we need access to reliable energy, clean water, et cetera. So that's something where we absolutely hope to be a partner with you going forward. I'll speak a moment about the RENMAD show. This is, you can see from the webinar that this show is being put on by ATA Insights. And so you'll be able to ask any questions about the show throughout the duration of this webinar if you're interested. It'll be held in October, and it will focus on renewables, particularly hydrogen and storage. I think it'll be a really great opportunity. We've done a lot of work in this space in the U.S. Embassy. It's definitely a priority for the U.S. government in Mexico to grow this space. And the topic of this webinar, nearshoring, is a track at the conference. So if this interests you, you can hear more in-depth discussion at the show and probably see some of the same speakers and have an opportunity for a face-to-face conversation. Also noting that the timing of the show, I think, could be quite good, relevant, considering that Mexico just had elections. We won't hear about a new cabinet for a while. And the timing of the show in October, I think, just makes a lot of sense for companies that are hoping to come to Mexico, get a feel of the policy situation at the federal level here in Mexico City. Will be a really great opportunity. And it'll just be down the street from our offices. So we always invite companies that are traveling for the show to come see us as well. So I will turn to Renata, who's our first speaker. And Renata, I think you have some slides.
Yes, thank you, Lauren, and also to RENMAD for the invitation. So give me just 2 seconds and I will share my screen. Okay. So I don't know if you can see the screen. Okay.
Yeah, we can see it.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So, okay, so for this panel, so we have, first of all, I know that nearshoring is not new in Mexico or in any part of the world, but it's important for us to understand what is nearshoring or why for us it's very important. So first of all, I want to tell you about AES. So I am, as Lauren mentioned, I am regulatory leader in AES Mexico. We are part of the AES Corporation, that is a US company. So here in Mexico, we are specialized in generation and supply of energy. In Mexico, we have almost 1.5 gigawatts of energy under operation. We have renewable projects, we have other kind of projects here. And so if you are interested in generation or in tailor-made solutions for energy supply, please do not hesitate to contact us. And so considering that we are an energy company, we want to give you our perspective of nearshoring in Mexico as an energy industry. So just for terms, nearshoring, it's the relocation of different companies here in Mexico in order to be very near from the countries that consume the product. So we all know that US is a very good country that consumes a lot. So we, as Mexico, want to try to have this nearshoring to our economy, right? So I am going to scare you a little bit because I am going to try to talk about the challenges that we see as the energy industry. Just to scare you a little bit because we already analyzed the solutions that we can implement in Mexico. So in main challenges to bring nearshoring to Mexico, we can see, for example, the regulation here, because obviously the energy industry is regulated, but as many problems that we can see, it's a slow process. So normally it took a little bit of months, a couple of months to have a generation permit, a generation supply. So normally that is a challenge that we have to solve. So also another challenge that we already face, it's the grid congestion or the insufficient infrastructure that we have. Also the slow transition to clean energy. I put this figure that it mentions the electricity generation in 2021. It's almost the same, but as you can see, we have the generation in Mexico with almost natural gas, oil, coal, and a little bit of renewables. So it has to be more, it is a slow process to transit to clean energy. And it's very important because as we can see, many companies are having decarbonization goals. So in order to implement or to achieve those decarbonization goals, it's important for us to have clean energy solutions. So it's a main challenge to have this slow transition, but also we have the solution to do so. Another challenge that we see, it's, for example, the pollution and the water stress. We know that the climate change is not a myth, obviously. So we can see the changes in our environment. So the water stress here in Mexico, it's very important to regulate and to highlight, because, for an example, if we want to have new clean energy solutions as green hydrogen or clean hydrogen, we need to regulate that part of the water stress and the pollution. So solutions, yeah. So as the energy industry, we already analyze it, and you have to be more calm because we know that we have many solutions to do so. For an example, solutions, we can see, obviously, we need investment in the infrastructure. We see that it's the most important part in order to generate and then to supply to the final consumers the clean energy. So the investment has to be part of obviously the industry, but also for part of the stakeholders that we have in Mexico, the government, the final consumers, the generators, etc. So it's very important to have the investment. We have to modernize our grid in order to be more efficient. Also, we need sustainable energy policies. As we already mentioned, the final consumers has many decarbonization goals, net zero goals, and the world needs to tackle climate change. So we need better sustainable energy policies. We already have energy policies, but we have to do it in a sustainable way in order to be competitive, and companies from outside Mexico wants to be part of the nearshoring here. Also, the diversification of energy sources. So I took this figure from the International Energy Agency. It's from 2022. But as we can see from the other figure also, is that we have many production of electricity with oil, with coal, with natural gas, and we have to transit to renewable solutions. And also the talent development. So we need vocational education in order to Mexican people to be prepared for all the companies that want to stay here in Mexico. And just as conclusion, we believe that it's very important and crucial that all the stakeholders start to be involved in it. The government, private sector, not only the energy industry, but also the final consumers, and also the academia, because we need different solutions. We need a mix of solutions, clean renewable energy, energy efficiency, to make it in a sustainable way. So we need sustainable policies. And this is very important in order to have economic growth here in Mexico. And that's everything for me. So I give the word to Lauren again, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Renata. And I see folks are beginning to join. I understand there was some issue with the link. So folks might be joining later as they get their Zoom in order. So just apologies about that. This session is being recorded, so you'll be able to review. Well, actually, it was just me talking, so you probably don't need to review it if you've already joined. You'll be fine. But if anyone is joining later or you'd like to share the recording, that's something that you can do as well. Next up, I'm happy to introduce our next guest speaker, which is Carla Ortiz from RER Energy Group. She is the CEO, she's the Chief Executive Officer for Mexico in this group. And Carla, thank you so much for your participation. We look forward to hearing your insights.
Thank you so much, Lauren. I will also share my screen, so give me 1 second. You should be able to see it now. Perfect. So thank you, Renata, for also the invitation. I'm so glad to be in this webinar with you guys to speak about a subject that is so important and relevant to Mexico as it is in nearshoring and the energy landscape and necessities. So just really briefly, I will be speaking a little bit more about the commercial and industrial point of view. We are an American solar developer and storage developer. We basically try to integrate microgrids both in the US and in Mexico, and we work with commercial and industrial customers. So my focus and what I will be speaking is from this front and what they are living today in Mexico and how they're assessing these necessities in the market. So the next slides come from the AMPIP, which is the Association of Industrial Parks in Mexico, that have amazing data about the growth of this sector in the country. So most of the industrial parks in Mexico are associated to the AMPIP. And here we can see some statistics of how nearshoring has grown, where you can see a big ramp up from 2021 to 2022 and to 2023. And basically, one of the most interesting things that we see is that their inventories have also gone down. So basically, the inventories they had post the pandemic, they were taken by the nearshoring. And it's been a very dynamic market where manufacturing and the automotive industry are the leaders of the nearshoring in Mexico. Obviously, these two sectors are very intensive in energy needs. Around 9.9 gigawatt hours of energy are required just for the industrial parks in Mexico. So this increasing need has also stressed the need of more electricity and infrastructure in the country. And well, as you can see, some of the largest developments in the country have been in the north, in the section of the Bajío, and in the center of Mexico as well. And I know Eduardo is going to speak more about one of the stars, which is Nuevo León. So I'll leave that to him. But basically, this leaves a great infrastructure challenge, as Renata is mentioning, a really large need of transmission and distribution investments in infrastructure, as well as policy needs. But not only this, another thing that is challenging for them is the administrative process of getting the permits and the requirements, which is the implementation of regulation itself. So what have we seen from our front and speaking to commercial and industrial customers is the other solution that could be a shorter term solution, which are microgrids. And I'm gonna come to that as well. Something that has been happening since last year is that we've been experiencing in the country blackouts. We reached a maximum demand of energy last year in June, by the end of June, reaching 52,000 megawatt hours. going below the 6% energy reserve that this grid should have, and bringing up all of the alarms now. And what do we see this year? This year we reached that point in May, and we started reaching that point, and we haven't even gotten to the maximum demand of the year. So there is a big need of energy. We have an increasing demand with nearshoring, and obviously we need a lot of infrastructure. So this is a great opportunity for microgrids to shine, to thrive, and to grow. And this is something that the end customers are looking at. They're looking at solutions in solar, in storage, and in other generations to basically build either integrated microgrids to the grid or completely off-grid microgrids. This is also some data from the Solar Association in Mexico, where we can see some of the growth, the solar growth itself, utility scale, and DG on the right side. On large scale generation, we haven't basically seen any growth in plants. The only thing that we've really seen is that some of the ones that were not integrated and they were in basically tests have started to go online again. But as you can see on DG, the growth that there has been in this market is also almost in the same parts where you can see that the industrial growth is happening. So as you can see, Nuevo León is one that has the most solar in DG, as well as Jalisco, as well as the center of the country. So there is a relationship between the growth of solar and the growth of industrial parks in Mexico, which leads us to also see that there is an increased need and increased interest of the industrial sector in having their own energy sources and basically renewable energy sources as well. So there are two figures, two regulatory figures that work today where you could install microgrids. The regulatory options are basically the DG under 500 kilowatts and something called Abasto Aislado, which does need a permit from the CRE and SENACE. These two figures are the one that commercial and industrial customers are looking at to be able to integrate microgrids in their solutions. What these solutions come with, basically with the technological options that we see in the market worldwide. The most popular is the combination between solar, storage, and another form of generation when these microgrids are completely off-grid. When these microgrids are interconnected to the grid, usually with solar and storage solutions are sufficient. An interesting part of these models is that they do usually require a financial model, a financial structure behind it so that the adoption is quicker. This way, because we have several parties that are involved, we have the end customer, we usually could have the industrial park, and we could have the developer. So financial solution that could help this be a zero investment at the beginning is something that could really increase the adoption of these solutions in the Mexican market. So these microgrids we have seen as well with some states that are going to be some of the short-term solution for the need of customers right now. Because as we can see, there are industrial parks with inventory, but some of them what don't have is energy availability for the customers that are ready to come in. So an already built-in microgrid with these construction infrastructures already in place is a great solution for the end customers that are ready to come into the country, especially when they need, as we can see, and the worldwide trend is for them to already have renewable energy and to have more renewable energy growth in the country. So that's all from me. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Carla. Before we move to our next speaker, I'd just like to make another quick announcement. I see more people are joining. I want to apologize. I understand there was some trouble with the link for folks joining. And just to remind you that the session will be recorded and you'll have an opportunity to review anything that you missed in the recording. And also you're invited to introduce yourself in the chat. And I'm very sorry, I will turn off my notifications as soon as I come back on camera. You're invited to introduce yourself in the chat, and please let us know if you're thinking about attending RenMad in October this year, the show in Mexico City. It's a great way for us to start networking ahead of the show. And next, I will move to our next speaker. Thank you so much for your patience, Eduardo. Next is Eduardo Sánchez from the Government of Nuevo León. He's the director for the energy program for the state. And thank you so much for your participation. We look forward to hearing about maybe statewide programming.
Thank you, Lauren and Renata, Carla. Thank you for your presentations. I will move on to my presentation. Could you just confirm if you see the if you can see the screen? Yep. Nope. Okay, so
Yeah, we can say it.
so first of all, I will move on to briefly explain what is Nuevo León. Nuevo León is has the second largest metropolitan area in Mexico, more than 6 million inhabitants, and is considered to be the industrial epicenter for Mexico. The concentration of industries in the last decades in Nuevo León, and specifically in the metropolitan area, has led such as economic spillover due to the investment attraction of foreign companies, which have also created an enormous amount of new jobs. So this is just to make in a comparison on where all this investment has been allocated within the metropolitan area. Because if we are facing some challenges, we need to understand where all this new power which will be demanded in the upcoming years, where all these companies have been locating in the last years, and where is it coming for the next years within the in terms of real estate, for instance. So considering the metropolitan area, we have seen a huge concentration in the eastern part of the metro area, which also complies with in terms of job creation, like showing the same numbers within the metropolitan area. This is important because it is not information that will lead to public policies in regard of the energy sector, but for the mobility, for housing, for other utilities. So it's important to understand where all these new jobs are being created, to understand where are the other in terms of public services, utilities, etc., where those services will be required within the metropolitan area. So we have defined an energy hub strategy. So this is just for the last 3 years, and this will show what Carla was also mentioning in terms of the real estate absorption for the industrial sector. So within the last 3 years, we have seen within the metropolitan area how all these companies have been allocated in specifically industrial parks. Right now, we track all the transactions that have taken place from 2021 but to the end of 2024, April 24. We see that as an average, 2 transactions per week are taking place, which means probably it could refer to the same company, just doing leasing contracts with within an industrial park with 2 different facilities, or it could mean that these 2 transactions go for different companies. But at the end of the day, it's such a this is the proof that nearshoring is actually happening, and the real estate sector is growing, and the industrial spaces, the inventory that is available is at the minimum percentage. And if you can go wherever here in the metropolitan area, you can see industrial parks being built. So this is actually happening, and the energy hub strategy maps the location of all these industrial parks and identifies where the new companies are potentially being going to be located, and these are the 25 energy hubs. So for these 25 energy hubs, we have done such market intelligence reports to understand which companies are located in these areas to see, because one of the characteristics of the companies that are arriving here to the state is that they want to be placed close to other local suppliers. Well, that's one of the main things. So for us, it's really important to understand what the companies are going to be located due to the presence of current industry. So just for some numbers about the real estate absorption, in the last 3 years, from 2021 to 2023, there were more than 400 hectares of absorption within industrial parks in just in the metropolitan area of Nuevo León, which means around 240 professional soccer fields. That there goes that I'm a soccer fan, but uh, so just for you to imagine, and for the upcoming 3 years, if we follow this trend, we will need more than 800 professional soccer fields. For instance, for the all the companies that are going to be arriving to the state. So this is huge. Because when we compare it with the potential power demand that they will be required, it goes over 1.1 MVAs of capacity that will be connecting to the grid, mostly at a distribution level. Here we are not considering all the other loads that might be connected directly to the transmission lines, like large companies, large projects. But this is important for us to understand after doing all this market analysis on the real estate and defining within this energy hubs where the new companies are potentially going to be located. This is for us the main reason to develop our energy pathway. So in terms of, I will just go quickly with all these slides just to show you graphically how we are growing and how the infrastructure is located and in the metropolitan area. So the yellowish area is the coverage of the energy hubs. Where
Eduardo,
potentially,
can I interrupt you? Could you maybe put your microphone, like just pivot it up a little closer to your mouth? You're a little quiet.
okay, better?
Yes.
Perfect. So um, so in regard of the of this specific slide, we can see the industrial parks and the coverage of the energy hubs. This is the presence of the manufacturing companies within the metropolitan area, mid and large size companies, which are more than almost 2,000 economic units that are being located within the metro area. And let's start with infrastructure. Here we can see the power the power plants, which are mostly operated with natural gas. We see the darker blue lines, which are the transmission lines, and the lighted blue, which are the presence of the gas pipeline. So in the last 10 years, just for you to know, the installed capacity in Nuevo León for power generation doubled its size, which means that from around 3 gigawatts of installed capacity, we're over 7 gigawatts of installed capacity up to now. So this was due to the presence of natural gas. So transmission lines and industrial parks. So when we map the distribution lines, which are the pink lines in this slide, we see that we have full coverage for the inner part of the metropolitan area, which is mostly for housing purposes, and the industrial areas that are outside this loop or outside this inner part from the metro area. There's a lack of infrastructure at the distribution level. And so when we map the substations at a distribution level, we see that there are places within the industrial areas which will need more transformation. So this is one of the main reasons when we talk about the problems in infrastructure is a lack of enough transformation, at least at Nuevo León and Monterrey metropolitan area. So we define this energy pathway, which resumes in this four. Well, let me go first with this. It responds to identify issues that it is not for Nuevo León, but I guess it's the same situation for the whole country in Mexico. So we have a stagnation on power generation plants in terms of there are most of them that are in planning, but still it hasn't grown as the demand has grown in the last year. And on the other side, we have an exponential growth on power demand due to the arrival of many companies and the expansion of existing ones. And so this power infrastructure is insufficient for the purposes for to attend that increases on the demand to attend and supply to the new users, and of course all the requirements that these companies are arriving. And I will do a small parenthesis. We're strictly focusing on the industrial purposes due to even though if we count all the economic units and the companies, the industry are around 3% of all the economic units, they demand 70% of the power. So that's why we're focusing all public policies, and this energy pathway is mostly focused to attend the problem for the industrial sector. Nonetheless, we trust that by focusing on the industrial sector, it will have an impact for the whole society. So I mentioned the stagnation, power generation, higher demand growth, the insufficient power infrastructure, the impacts of climate change. We're facing the big demand on May, as Carla was mentioning. Numbers that we were looking back last year at the end of June, sometimes in July, August, but now we had it in May, so it is quite an alarm on how climate change is affecting the power demand that we have right now. And the ESG compliance for all the companies that are arriving, and something really important, the timing. Companies need to start operations in a short term, but the infrastructure might take 3 to 5 years to deploy, and also the power plants and everything, considering all the permitting processes, the construction, the procurement, and the start of operations. So there are some ways we need to face this problem. So we have to find this energy pathway that if we look at it at 4 different stages or moments, we have the first one, the planning and infrastructure in terms of as a governmental as a renewable energy agency for the state of Nuevo León, to understand where we are growing and what will be the infrastructure or the projects that have to be deployed in order to attend that increase on the demand. Secondly, once we know what we need in the mid and long term in terms of infrastructure, we need to optimize the demand. So this will be the compliance with the grid code and energy efficiency programs for mostly industry companies and small medium enterprises. Then we're following with the renewable sourcing. So here we are promoting renewable energy projects both for at a utility scale and distributed generation. As Carla mentioned, that there's a huge potential for all these companies that are arriving to incorporate storage as part of their projects, and isolated power plants which are not connected to the grid but are built for the purposes of the own company. And at the end, we have this sustainable transition, which considers some new energy carriers such as green hydrogen, and how we are going to be building, and in this case, strengthening a local supply chain to deploy green hydrogen projects in the near future. So these are the 4 moments we're working. This is the understanding we have for the challenges in the short term, the solutions we are proposing to take action immediately, and also to be envisioning somehow how we want our state to be working in the next years. So from my side, this was we have different allies in the process, from universities, chambers, associations, specifically companies, international governments. So this has been such a hard work to strengthen this linkages between all different stakeholders, but it's one of the reasons we now have this energy pathway. So from my side, that will be all, and we're ready for questions from the audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Eduardo. Yeah, just wrapping up, 3 great speakers, I think, that cover a good range of what people might be interested in. Renata from a huge energy company doing big, like large scale investments. Carla maybe doing a bit more of the matching with entities with maybe smaller, not grid scale needs with producers, and then Eduardo from a stateside investment perspective. We don't have anyone from the federal government, and honestly, with elections 3 days ago, that's kind of a hard presentation to give, but maybe just from the embassy's perspective, I can speak a moment. Just to back up what these speakers have said, certainly from our meetings with the Sheinbaum campaign before the elections, we do expect that self-supply, isolated generation, that will continue to be something that the federal government supports folks doing. Carla spoke to an exception for small-scale power generation. I think that we can expect it to get easier also for larger projects. Not going into too many details because we don't know them, frankly, but I think that that's just the language that we've been hearing from the campaign. Just to add a bit of optimism to some of the practical policy conversation that we're having. A question for all of you, and then maybe I'll move into targeted questions next. Can you speak a bit about government incentives programs specifically for nearshoring? Of course, SAT has some federal, large-scale, largely applicable incentives programs, but they're short-term, they're not very large. States have been quite generous. Nuevo León especially, of course, that's why we see Eduardo a lot in these meetings. They're doing a lot to attract investment to their state, but other states as well, I think, are making one-stop shops. They're doing their best to attract companies. For the speakers, what's it like kind of navigating those different incentives programs for either a Mexican or a foreign company hoping to do nearshoring work in Mexico and seeking energy supply for their investments?
Okay, I will have in this regard. For the case of Nuevo León, we could imagine that incentives are like mostly for all the companies, but it isn't true. The attractiveness of Nuevo León in that regard is it comes from the workforce. One of the main reasons is the quality of the human capital base that we have here in Nuevo León, and some other in terms of infrastructure, not only in power infrastructure. We know that there are some challenges in that regard, but all the other infrastructure for doing business, because it has been one of the main promoters, and also the strategic location that as a country we have a strategic location. But in case of Nuevo León, we have even though we have a 14-kilometer border with the US. It is now the second largest one cross-border terrestrial cross-border with the U.S. for commercial purposes. So this has led many things that that companies are looking back at Nuevo León, and I will mention also as I mentioned in the presentation, the presence of other local suppliers that might integrate their supply chain. So that is also something important, and it has been one of the main reasons of nearshoring, to be close to demand, but also close to most of your suppliers. So it's something how it is being working in Nuevo León.
So I don't know if maybe for the part of the energy industry perspective, one of our main challenges is the incentives that we need for renewable projects and for the diversification of our grid mix. So there's no much incentive for renewable projects currently. But as for an example, Eduardo and Carla and myself already mentioned, the infrastructure part for the energy supply is very important. So we will need incentives to do so, but also maybe we have to work jointly with the government and with the other private stakeholders, because it's a huge investment and neither of us independents can do it by ourselves. So maybe and I do not want to say that Mexico is not doing anything. Oh, we have so many things. For an example, in regarding clean hydrogen, we're trying to have new regulation to include incentives. Maybe not as much as the U.S. country has, but trying to tropicalize that kind of incentives here in Mexico to incentivize new projects. So probably that it will be working here in Mexico, and also, well, yeah, like working with the private sector will be very, very crucial for us.
And also, just to complement, in the DG side, there have been some incentives left in place since the market started a few years ago. There is a fiscal benefit of accelerated depreciation that is still in place that allows the economics to be much better for investors. And there is still net metering that applies almost to the entire country as well. So I would say that for the DG side, that we see those two incentives are very important and have been important for the growth of the DG sector, and they continue to be there. So it's one small side from the entire energy mix. However, it shows that incentives to provide growth, as this market is the one that keeps on growing. One of the things that the policymakers are looking at is the threshold, the 500 kilowatt threshold that does not require permits, to amplify it, to make it bigger, as right now it's just 0.5 megawatt, which is really small compared to the size of the Mexican grid and the diversity of regions that we have. And it is something that the party that right now is going to take the presidency looked at and is looking at and is reviewing. And that would be one of the things that would help also as well keep the sector growing.
That's great to hear. I've heard of kind of streamlining larger permitting processes, but I hadn't heard about increasing the threshold, but that makes a lot of sense. That would be an easy way to kind of unburden the permitting system. I guess a question probably first for you, Carla, but then others, please do chime in. Just what are the biggest challenges that you see companies facing for industrial and commercial nearshoring here in Mexico?
One of the things that, as Renata was mentioning, and Eduardo as well, is energy and water. But I would say it's timing as well. You have a process of implementing infrastructure and timing. Companies want and have plans right now, and it might not really match with what is available in the region that they're looking at. So timing is one of the things that are crucial right now. Finding short-term solutions to be able to really accommodate all of the nearshoring options and necessities that we have in the country and in the region in specific that they're looking at. Or for the companies would be to look at maybe other regions that have options, but it's a trade-off always.
Absolutely. Yeah, the regional considerations are valid within Mexico. I'll just note that our offices, we have foreign commercial service officers such as myself, as well as local staff who are specialists in different industries. They're present here in Mexico City, but also in Monterrey and Guadalajara. And for those who are potentially investing from outside Mexico, we choose those regions strategically. We see a lot of investment from the United States, a lot of commercial activity in those regions. Really, Guadalajara, if unfamiliar, that region is kind of the Silicon Valley of Mexico. So a lot of intensive energy usage. And then, of course, Nuevo León, a lot of manufacturing across the board. And that's manufacturing that benefits from USMCA, from the proximity to the United States, from, of course, a very educated workforce, which, of course, we see throughout the country, but Nuevo León has boasted that for decades. So for investors from outside Mexico, feel free to reach out to us and we can kind of maybe guide you and help you identify clusters within Mexico that make sense for your specific type of investment. It also sounds like you can reach out to maybe Carla, who has a good read on the actual industrial park investment and what's going to be available and what different parks are seeking in terms of investment. I guess maybe a question for Renata, Carla. Technically, what do we see working in terms of on-site power generation in Mexico? Are we seeing, kind of rooftop solar or other types of investment? What works here?
So as we saw from the energy industry, we see that what Carla already mentioned about the hubs, that will work for any like large company, because they're going to reduce so many costs. They're not going to use the grid that it has so many congestion. So that will work for the large companies, also for the small companies, and obviously solar rooftop projects. That's we're going to see it, and maybe we'll start to see development of clean hydrogen hubs that will also could be working. We have to obviously develop the regulation for doing that, but we see that Mexico has a lot of potential, so we are going to see that also. And for large scale projects, we probably will see, yes, permits for generation, but it will be jointly with the government. And we need to modernize the transmission grid. So that's very needed in order to, to supply the energy demand that Carla and Eduardo already mentioned. So we hopefully see that modernization of grids in this couple of years.
Absolutely. In terms of challenges, I was expecting a transmission and distribution response of some sort. I guess a question perhaps well, you know what? I haven't looked at our questions in the chat. Ian, can you let me know if anything's come in? I can't see the Q&A. Sorry.
There are no questions right now on the Q&A, so don't worry. I mean, if the attendees may want to make some questions, you can send them to the Q&A box. But yeah, I mean, Lauren, maybe we can get like a few conclusions, something like that. So yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Yeah, I can do this all day. If we need to keep asking questions, I will grill you all. I appreciate that you've all kind of confirmed some of the things that we've been saying in the embassy for a while, that while large grid scale solutions are difficult in Mexico, and I think they will remain difficult. This is something that Renata has a law degree in to overcome. DG remains an opportunity, and probably a growing opportunity. Even in the new administration, it will only increase. I think, like Carla said, we're going to see some overall barriers come down, and it's going to be a solution that this government supports. So we, within the embassy, we encourage you to come to Mexico and meet with folks to talk about this. We provide services where we can set up individual meetings for you if you're looking to do this type of work. Or, of course, this is an organization. This is a webinar set up by the organization ATA Insights to support the show RENMAD. We totally invite you to come to a show. We will walk the show floor with you. If we're there, if we're doing a USA Pavilion, you can exhibit with us, and we can help introduce you to kind of the key stakeholders. And if you're planning to travel to Mexico, we can help set up some sideline meetings that make your travel worthwhile. We recommend, if you're coming to Mexico City, maybe also hit Monterrey, maybe also hit Guadalajara, could make sense. And that we have a calendar of other shows on our website, just so that you can get the most bang for your buck in terms of travel. So maybe a bit of a concluding question about an optimistic question about what steps can companies, investors, companies present in Mexico, or outside investors, or the Mexican government take to reduce emissions, reach net zero, incorporate more renewables. What are kind of your big picture goals that you'd like to see maybe in the next 5, maybe 6 years? That's for everybody.
I'll start with the DG side. As you mentioned, it's a sector that we see growing, and that we're optimistic that hopefully with a few regulatory tweaks, it will be helping, especially the short-term opportunity and issue that we have in the country. So basically, it's simplifying the administrative process of abasto aislado, which is the legal figure for DG that is larger than 500 kilowatts. We're usually looking at the size of around 10 megawatts when it's connected to the grid, which is a really good, a better size, I would say, for a combination of microgrids for industrial customers in the country. And basically the bulk of these solutions, it's not a solution worldwide, or I would say it's not a long-term solution for the country, but it's a short-term necessity that could help, especially the areas that don't have any megawatts left. And it's a solution that could really benefit industrial customers as well. One of the things that I would see, not only from the government, but this is from the end customers as well, is to try to get outside of the box thinking, because solutions are already here. Technology is available. We see microgrids all over the world working. So looking at a microgrid at first, just as a beginning, it is a really good solution. We already see microgrids working in the country, full microgrids that combine not only solar, but solar storage and another form of backup generation that can ensure that growth that they're looking at this time, at this point of time. So we see not only an effort from policy, which is required, but we also see a mindset changing and investing into the technology that is already in place.
And from the energy perspective, just like complementing what Carla says, because for us also microgrids are going to solve many problems here in Mexico. So we also like encourage like all the stakeholders to have that kind of collaborative projects, you know, to between government, the private industry, international organizations, etc. But also in parallel, we have to seek incentives for renewable projects in large scale, because we need that to incentivize also to the modernization of grids. And also, and it's very important, and first of all, to raise awareness. So it's not a myth that the energy industry is one of the most, we had like 74% of all the greenhouse emissions. So it's not a myth. But we have to raise awareness to, you know, to seek the solution. As Carla mentioned, we already have those solutions. We need only to make tailor-made solution for the companies and, you know, different countries. And also the energy efficiency. So just to make you an example here in AES, like just for fun, like months ago, we just like making an example of what will happen if we unplug your house devices, I don't know, the microwave, you know, the video game console, and etc. And we see that just you in your house could be like saving just like a power bill in the 12 months. Like it's good, but imagine if we can make that in large scale in the energy efficiency for companies. So we have to seek that in parallel while we develop new projects, as already Carla mentioned. And that's it. Thank you.
And well, I will end up with how I foresee the energy sector from the public sector perspective. And I guess we've talked and we've shared that infrastructure is such a challenge in the short term. So we need to develop some other schemes in order to have these public-private partnerships to deploy projects that are lacking right now in many regions in Mexico. So I guess that would be important for the next administration to have this openness for the public sector and to identify which will be the schemes in which the private sector could be that investor that the public sector actually needs to deploy this infrastructure. That's in that regard. And for energy efficiency, as Renata, I totally share her point of view, and it's but moreover, we need more guidelines, or at least those guidelines are already existing to be implemented. So we have a lot to do in terms of energy efficiency, and there's a huge opportunity to decrease the challenges that we have right now in infrastructure, to bring some solutions in the short term by implementing energy efficiency projects. And for the renewables, and I totally agree with both of you that microgrids will be the solution for these large consumers of energy. So by introducing storage systems and implement this microgrid within the isolated power generation model, or in the at a distributed generation model, both can bring solutions to the company. So I guess if we provide more information and to make it more public for everyone, that then will be an important growth in those projects during this year and the next one. And well, that would be all.
Thank you so much, everyone. Yeah, to Renata's point, energy efficiency, I think, will be a big priority both for this government and even the U.S. Embassy. I think we're expecting some funding for energy efficiency projects. So please, if anyone on the line is interested in that type of work, please reach out. I didn't really think about speaking to it at the beginning, but that's something where we expect to be really active through the end of this year and next. So thank you again to our speakers, Renata, Carla, Eduardo. We hope to see you in Mexico City in October for the RenMed show. I hope that you come back as speakers. I hope that we see our attendees exhibiting or walking the show. If anyone has any questions about the show itself, I'm sure that ATA will follow up with a little bit of promotional material about the show. You can reach out to Lucia, Maria, or Ian about the show. And if you have any questions about anything that I presented on, my email is in the chat. And thank you for staying on a little bit later, and apologies about the link confusion at the beginning of the hour. Thank you all, and have a great afternoon here in Mexico City. Great late afternoon in Spain. Probably great afternoon for everyone joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.